More than 60 years ago, a young woman left Germany searching for something she couldn't yet describe. Today, she finally knows what she was looking for.
And in Germany, if you're German, you're first class. If you are not German, I wanted to live around people with different attitudes, different colors, different languages, different. And I saw an ad in the paper that said, if you are interested in working in Canada, I came by ship. I came in October. I came from Rotterdam to Montreal. It was stormy and I loved it. And so I came with $80 in my pocket. And I'm lousy at that. I'm good with children, but when it comes to housework, you know, I am lousy. They saw Canada as a gigantic park without any culture.
Born during the final years of World War II, she grew up in a loving family where education was everything.
My name is Gisela Kingsbury. I am originally from Germany, and I came to Canada in 1965, and I am now nearly 83 years old. Okay. I was born during the war, 1943, and my father had been a major in the German army, and well, after the war was over, there was no more German army, so he became a teacher. And I am the oldest of 3 girls. My father's name was Hein, and my mother's name was Waltraud. And we we inherited my grandfather's house in the mountains, so we had a nice place to stay. We were a very happy family. My parents never argued, and so we were considered a very lucky family, because during the war, you know, after the war, things were bad and there was a lot of strife in families. But my parents kept everything nice and quiet. I realized from very early on that my parents were it was very important to them, education.
Education opened many doors, but expectations can also become heavy to carry.
We were always pushed to be better in school than the others. It was easier for my sisters. I was not that good. But because I was the oldest, and because I was the teacher's daughter, it was expected that I will go to high school and university. And at that time, high school started with grade 5 in Germany. Regular kids would go from grade 1 to grade 8 and then go and learn a trade. But after the end of grade 4, the top students of grade 4 would be sent to a 2-week testing period at a high school. And we were about 40 kids in the class, and 7 were sent for testing and 5 passed. And I was one of them. But I think it was also mainly because I got a lot of pushing from home to always be the best. I always wanted to be an archaeologist. I was always interested in ancient history. Well, by grade 8, I realized that Latin, I was learning Latin and English, and I just wasn't that good. And my sister was very smart, and she was a year below me. And I was terrified for years that I would fail and end up in her class and still be stupider than she was. And so at the end of grade 10, my parents were told by the high school teacher that it might be a good idea if I would leave and go do something else. And so I became a nursery school teacher. But it was already, it was clear to me that I didn't measure up. My sisters were smart, and I was always also a little bit of a rebel. And so I realized very soon that if I wanted to date somebody, you normally bring him home, to introduce him to your parents. It better be somebody from university. And I resented this kind of pressure because when I was changing from grade 4 in public school to grade 5 in high school, I had made friends in grade 4 and grade 3 that they were in an orphanage in our village. And they were smart, but they were, and I got along great with them. Once I was in grade 5, I was not allowed to associate with them anymore. When I wanted to invite them for my birthday, my parents said, no, you better find, friends at your level. I didn't comprehend what level meant to them. I just resented the idea that I was told who to like and who not to like. That kind of got worse over the years.
She wasn't trying to escape Germany. She was searching for a different life.
After I finished college, I worked in a big orphanage. The kids in the orphanage weren't really orphans. Well, some of them were, but because prostitution is legal in Germany, a lot of the children of the prostitutes live at the orphanage. And the mothers would come on the weekend, Saturday or Sunday, pick them up for the day, take them out. And, I liked those kids, but I knew I couldn't bring one home for the weekend. It just wasn't done. And I was brought up in the Protestant church, and I asked too many questions, and I doubted. And that was another thing that you didn't do. Germany was, maybe it still is, very authoritarian. And as a rebel, you don't, it doesn't make it easier. So I wanted to get away. I wanted to live somewhere where the influence of my parents was diminished, so as far away as possible. And I wanted to live around people with different attitudes, different colors, different languages, different religions. I don't care. Just, and in Germany, if you're German, you're first class. If you are not German, you just don't count, And it doesn't matter how long your family, if you're from Turkey or Italy, it doesn't matter how long you have lived in Germany, you're still the foreigner.
Sometimes one advertisement changes an entire life.
I saw an ad in the paper that said, if you are interested in working in Canada, we will put an ad in a German-Canadian newspaper for you. And I thought, Canada sounds multicultural. I just said, yes. So I wrote the ad, not realizing that at that time there were no orphanages or even daycare or anything in Canada. So I put an ad in the paper, and I got letters from all over Canada, German people, to help in the household, to look after children, to help on the farm, marriage proposals, or, come and live with me. Anyway, I picked a family in Ottawa. They paid my trip. At that time, it was cheaper to come by ship than to fly.
In October 1965, Gisela stepped aboard a ship that quietly changed the rest of her life.
Okay, I came by ship. I came in October. I came from Rotterdam to Montreal. It was stormy, and I loved it. I like the smell of ocean. I love stormy weather. I don't mind rain. I like big waves and white caps. And we had it nearly all the way. And I loved it.
Sometimes, the hardest part of immigration isn't the country, it's the first experience.
I came to a family, very rich in Ottawa. She was French Canadian and he was Lebanese. And I came under the provision that they would not pay me until I have worked off the passage. And so I came with $80 in my pocket, and in a family that, to look after children. They had 3 small children. And so I have to be honest, I was supposed to look after the household too, and I'm lousy at that. I'm good with children, but when it comes to housework, I am lousy. So they were probably just as unhappy with me as I was with them. Well, one day I was there a month. I was ironing, and I turned the radio on, and I didn't realize that the husband was home, and he came storming out of his office turned the radio off and told me that I was being paid for work, not entertainment. And I decided, nah, this is not what, this isn't Canada. This is just an odd family. And I worked, I had one afternoon a week off and every second Sunday afternoon. And I met a family, and they realized that I was not very happy in my job, and they said, "We will lend you the money to pay them back. You can live with us, and you can find another job." I did, and I never looked back.
She could have gone home. Instead, she chose to begin again.
I worked at an A&W, like McDonald's. At that time, that was in 1965. At that time, there weren't really any proper labor laws in Canada. The minimum wage was 90 cents an hour, and you could work any hours you wanted. So I worked at the A&W from 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then from 5 until midnight. And I worked from Easter until the end of September, and I took 1 day off in the whole time. I worked every day, and you were allowed to do that. And also because I didn't have, parents in the background who could chip in.
She planned to stay for 1 year. Life had another plan.
I met my husband at that time. Well, he met me. He came to get a hamburger at the A&W, and I was the server. But we were told we were not allowed to fraternize with the customers. So I didn't. Yeah, I smiled and didn't pay any attention. But I had moved with a family into an apartment on the outside of Ottawa, and he had moved with his cousin at the same time, and we met at the swimming pool. And he introduced himself, and he showed me around. He didn't realize that I already lived there for half a year. I knew everything there, and he had just moved there. But he was very polite and a little taller than I was. And I don't care for looks. It was that he liked music, he was polite. And so he asked me for a date, and I say yes. And we went, after work, we went for a dance. And he brought me home, and my landlady, where I lived, asked me, how was it? And I said, I don't remember his name, but if he asked me, I say yes. Well, the next day, he asked me. I had planned to go to university in the States, and, to study whatever, German and he said he would wait for me for 1 year. And I thought, what's the use for 1 year to go to university, then come back? So I said, okay, I'll stay. And I took a course at the government for typing and shorthand. And then I worked for Indian Affairs in Ottawa. And Bill was an electrician. And when he was offered a job in Peterborough, he said, you want to come? And I said, yes. And so he lived with his brother, here in Peterborough, and I lived with friends of theirs, and we decided to get married. So we got married in 1967. And at that time, exactly at that time, they opened the first daycare center in Peterborough, and I got the job. So I stayed there until I was pregnant with Adrian. So, 3 years? Adrian was born in 1971. Yeah, we got married in 1967, and Adrian was born in 1971. And then 10 months later, Tyson was born. And I stayed home. At that time, if you were not entitled, that you should be allowed to go to the movies or have holidays, you could live on one wage. And Bill was working at Ethicon, which is do you know where the Catholic high school Holy Cross is? That was a big medical concern. Ethicon sutures, they make the examination gloves and operation needles and stuff like that. And my husband was maintenance electrician. And then he built a house by himself out in the country outside of Peterborough. It took him about 4 months. And he worked nights, and during the day he was working at the house. At that time, he borrowed $28,000 from the bank, and he built the house. And we moved. And when the kids were in kindergarten and grade 1, I never learned to drive. So it was a little lonely out there. When the garbage truck came by, or the plow in the winter, I would run to the window and go like this. It was the only adult I ever saw during the day. And when the kids were old enough to go to school, I made my driver's license, and my husband bought another car for me. And the moment I had the car, my husband said, "Now you have all day to clean the house, now that the kids are full-time in school." And I thought, yeah, right. That is not what I wanted. I had always preferred to work with children who are different, either physically or mentally handicapped. And I heard about Trafalgar School here. It was community living, was it called later on. And it was classes for mentally handicapped kids. And I thought, I went and volunteered for a year and a half. And then they offered me a job. And I worked for community living for 23 years. I loved it. Every single day was different. I enjoyed it because you could do all kinds of things. You could use regular language, you could use sign language, you could use pic symbols, picture language. You had a class of 10. I was not a teacher, I was an educational assistant. There was a teacher and 1 or 2 EAs. And I loved it. It was tailor-made for me. And I stayed there until 2004, something like that. Yeah. I quit when I was 60. And I wanted to say that when I left Germany, I never looked back. My sisters married exactly what my parents wanted. And one is divorced, and the other one wished she was. And here, you know, I was married for 57 years, very happy. It never, I think until my parents died, they expected me to come with my kids and my hand, and say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, can I come back? They saw Canada as a gigantic park without any culture. They also thought that they told me that I had lost a lot of German values and never gained anything, in return. And when I asked them what German values, the things that they told me, I did not see them as a value. That you have to be better than the other person. All kinds of stupid things. But that was their life, and I had my life here.
Life doesn't stop changing. Even after decades of happiness, every journey faces loss.
My husband died 2.5 years ago, very suddenly. And he, for the last 10 years of our marriage, he was my caregiver because I could not see the dials on the stove or microwave or frying pans and stuff like that. So he took over. He had taken over cleaning the house a long time ago because, I very happily climb over over the dirt. But I was good with the kids, and I would take them at March break. I would take the kids to New York, would drive there and see things. My husband stayed home. He didn't want any of that. So when he died, I couldn't look after the house. And so I sold the house and moved in here. And I'm very happy here. I have, 2 sons. Adrian is working in the kitchen at Trent University. And Tyson is a graphic artist and works for Toronto Hydro. And I have the Tyson and Sunita have 2 children. A daughter Maya, who is in university to become a lawyer, and a son Max, who is screenwriter, in university. Adrian also has a son, he in Peterborough. But right now he is 19, and he is not interested in school or anything. He likes to play videos, and so we hope that he'll, what they say in Canada, have what is it called? Have a never mind what it's called. Have a change and see that the future you need to be prepared.
More than 60 years have passed since she first arrived. Canada changed, and so did she.
Canada has given me the opportunity to be me. What I think I have given back is that I'm always happy. So the people around me, they either stay away or they become happy. That besides my needlework and stuff like that, I think it is my willingness to listen and to learn to keep my mouth shut when I have to. I'm trying, I've always tried to make, I can't do anything about world peace and world war, but I can make my little area as happy and peaceful as possible. And that's what I have always worked on.
Some journeys never truly end because immigration isn't only about crossing borders. Sometimes it's about discovering the freedom to become yourself.